Welcome to our first video in the DAW of our music production course. Before getting into the DAW, let's check on the next point. Why is a microphone connected to an interface? Our microphone is receiving information of audio, but computer doesn't understand what is audio. Computer just understands electromagnetic impulses. That is why we need an interface for our information to be translated to the computer. But why is the interface so important? If you see your interface where you connect your microphone, you're gonna see a little knob. That knob is called gain. Do you know what gain is for? Gains just mean that you're gaining voltage. So every time you move your knob, you either get more or lose more. How do we determine that? For us to know that, we need to take a look into the DAW. We need to create an audio track. How do you do that? Click on the little cross that you have here. Now, click on the part that says Audio, Create, and there you have it. You have your audio information. Now, let's take a look into the information menu. If you click on letter I, you're gonna see the information menu. On the information menu, you're going to see the fader. In top of the fader, you're gonna see a number that says 00, and on the side, you're gonna see other number. That other number means how many decibels the computer is having from the interface to the computer. That is our information of how much do we need to move the knob. Usually, the second number that is on the fader needs to reach -6 or -3. That depends on you. Normally, it's teach that the headroom, that's a very important word, headroom needs to stay in -6. So your headroom when you are doing any recording has to be around -6. You need to really pay attention to this part. If you screw up in this part, you're gonna screw up everything. You are not gonna receive enough information for you to edit. You need to receive at least -6 decibels. Your headroom needs to be in -6 decibels. Remember, headroom -6, headroom -6, headroom -6. I know I'm saying it a lot, but if you screw up this part, everything's done. Your recording is not going to be good. You are not gonna have enough information to edit. So you really need to pay attention to this part. What happens if you go above 0? Because if there's exists a -3, there's gotta exist 0. You're gonna reach saturation, and that, my friend, you don't want it either, because that's too much information of audio and it cannot be processed by the interface. So you're gonna hear something like I know it's horrible, the sound I just made, but that's what you're going to hear. Have you something wonder what is stereo? Why is music in stereo? I'm going to solve you this with one simple question. How many ears do you have? 2. So you get all your information from audio in stereo, meaning that all information of audio that you receive has 2 channels, left and right. You got no more than that. That is stereo. But how do we control stereo? There's a thing called pan functionality. Do you know what pan functionality is? Let's go higher from your fader. There is a little knob. This knob is the pan functionality. And if we move it, check it by yourself. Move the little ball. Now, put just some headphones for really appreciation of it. Now, I'm on your left. I'm on your right. That is the only job of the pan functionality. That is the only job for this little ball. Did you notice that little box that says stereo out? That is where all audio is going to be out. But we can change that. In a matter of fact, we need to change that. Imagine you have a full orchestra, 4 violins, 11 violins, 11 second violins, 3 trumpets. You are not gonna work with all those channels. Those are too many. We are gonna work with one master channel or auxiliary input. Let's look at the next diagram. Let's imagine we have 4 violins. Those 4 violins are going to your stereo out, but in a matter of fact, we need to change that. So those violins need to go to a bus input called auxiliary input, also called in the program bus 1. We know that bus 1 is for violins, but the out to that bus, it's gonna be the stereo out. So now we have to control not 4 violins, only 1. But when you have a full orchestra, that really helps. To only have one fader for violins 1, one fader for violins 2, one fader for violas, that is gonna make your workflow so easy. How do we change the stereo out? Let's return to the DAW. As you can see, we have 4 violins. Now we are going to change the stereo out. As you can see, we're gonna click on stereo out and you have many options. We're gonna go for bus. As you can see, we have many bus. That means that you can use as many auxiliary inputs as you want. So, but for this moment, we're gonna use bus 1. We change it all in the program. Now, for you to really find the bus functionality or really find the bus fader, you need to click on X. If you want to show it on your workflow or in your normal page, you just click on this little button that says read. Just click on and you can see that we have it now in our homepage. Do you want to know what compression is? Well, let's take a look at our first audio effect. Let's take a look at the part of a compressor. First, we're gonna look into the threshold. To understand the threshold, look at the next video. Threshold is where you define when the compressor is gonna start compressing. As you can see in the video, we have an imaginary line. That is our threshold. Whenever your audio passes the threshold, the compressor is gonna start working, so everything beyond that point it's gonna get compressed. So now let's change the video. Let's imagine we have an audio with 0 decibels of headroom. Let's imagine we set our threshold in -20. What is going to happen? Everything beyond that point is gonna get compressed, so the compressor is gonna start working when our audio meets our threshold, meaning that whenever our input gain meets our threshold or passes it, the compressor is gonna start working. Next part we're going to see it's the radio. So remember we drew an imaginary line on -20 in our audio? How much are you gonna compress that sound? That's the instruction that the radio gives. Meaning that we can have half of the audio, 3 parts of the audio, 4 parts of the audio. Let me explain this more. Radio is represented in an escalated way, meaning that when you pass the threshold, you are gonna divide your audio information by the number you select on your radio. Let's look at the next image. Imagine we have a whole building. We're gonna reduce it by half. That, in an escalated radio, means 1 to 2. Let's make the building even smaller. Let's imagine it's 1 to 3, or 1 to 4, or 1 to 5. If I increase the number in the radio, it's gonna be more compressed, meaning that your audio information is not gonna disappear when you get past your threshold. It's just gonna get compressed, and you will define how much you compress it by your radio. Now let's take a look at release and attack. Attack is measured in milliseconds, and it means when your audio passes your threshold, how much time is it going to take for your compressor to start working. That is defined by what instrument you are compressing. So in a drum set, you are actually going to need a fast compression. But when you're talking about a singer, you don't really need that fast of a compression. If you compress everything fast, it's gonna be so obvious and it's gonna sound so compressed. Don't worry about this, we're going to see examples at the end. Release is almost the same thing. It's when your audio goes below your threshold, how much time is it going to happen up until your compressor stops working. And this also depends on the instrument. On a drum set, you're gonna really need to compress it, but with a singer, no. Now let's take a look at the knee. This is better to see than to explain, but it actually means how aggressive your compressor is going to see. Let's take a look at the compressor and see the little graphic it's showing. To actually see what is the knee, it's easier to see what is the knee. So now you're probably wondering what is makeup. So let's take an example now using the compressor. Let's take a look at the input gain and at the output gain. So you're going to look to the left and to the right at almost the same time. You gotta make it up for what you have compressed. All the time you're gonna end up having less because you compress your audio, so you lose information of audio. Well, actually you compress it, but let's say you lose it. You compress information, so you gotta make up for that. That is the makeup. It only stands for gain makeup. So you gotta look first to the right and then to your left. First you gotta look into your input gain and memorize the number it's playing there, to then look to your right side for you to actually see your output gain match with your input gain. So that's what the makeup does. It either puts more gain or it takes away gain from our output. So now let's use the compressor for good. First, you are gonna hear the audio as it is. Then I'm gonna do a good compression. That a good compression only affects the attack of the envelope of the sound we are hearing, and a very bad and aggressive compression. So first, normal as the audio is. Second, it's a good compression only using the attack to compressing the envelope. And the third one is a compression very bad done. As you can see, compression plays a very important role in our control of our dynamic range, so it's very important for you to practice how to use the compressor. Now that you know how to use it, experiment with your audios. Get any audio from YouTube and try to compress it a little. Too much, you gotta find your way to compress them. I recommend to look for a drum set in YouTube and to try to compress it with any DAW you have. Now let's look at the noise gate. What do you think a noise gate is? You now know what a compressor is, so let's take a look at the noise gate. As you can see, it has pretty similar parts such as the compressor, but this time, every time we pass our threshold, we are gonna have sound. What a noise gate is, it's a gate that only opens when you reach or pass your threshold. So that way you're not gonna have any sound. It's gonna work better with an example. First, to introduce the part, you know what a threshold is. So we don't have to explain that, but the reduction is how much sound is it going to take off the audio when the gate is closed. Attack and release work just the same as in the compressor, but hold, it's another measure we haven't seen. Hold works when you pass your threshold and reach your attack. How much is it going to hold the door open when you reach back, and then you take your release. But this is another measure we have to take into account when we are using a noise gate. Now let's take a look at that example. I'm gonna play you an audio as it is, and then I'm going to use a noise gate. It is as simple as that. When you hear it, you are gonna recognize it. Well, you heard it. I told you it was gonna get easier to understand when you heard it. So why do we use noise gates? We normally use it on drum sets, because we don't want all the sound that one drum makes from the other, so we only want the sound that one drum is giving us. It's normally used on drum sets. That's all you need to know about noise gate. You can use it however you like. That's it for today. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you understand everything. If you have any doubts, please let me know in the comments below and I'll answer them on my class I'm going to give on the 28th of November in Mon Memorial University in Newfoundland. So I hope to see you there. So that's it for this video.